Look like we're live?
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Live. Tuesday at 7. Smack dab on the nose, I think this time. Or just hair past the freckle, right? Or not even.
many hairs for you guys.
Oh, so for those who are joining, first week we did a creative interview with Neil Zaza. Last week we did a creative interview with Jerry Schmidt, metal sculpture. And this week we're going to have a creative conversation with Gregg DeFibaugh. He is somebody who mentored me along the way with my special effects and my knowledge there. Back then, we didn't have YouTube. We could press a button and do a tutorial. You had a bunch of books, which I still have back here, and then you hopefully were lucky enough to find somebody to kind of mentor you along the process. And Gregg is that guy who was there, did my first face cast. As a matter of fact, as people are
still have it.
There it is.
Oh,
this
that's
is
great.
1990.
This was done in the shop too. This wasn't done at the house. This was done at the shop.
Done at the shop.
Yep.
Yep. So there's been a lot of good wear and tear on that one. Can you see it there?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Gregg did my first face cast. I've used this within the last 10 years. You notice my face is a little different.
Yes.
But,
as you age, you change.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the bones move.
No, that's funny, and I'm sure we wrote all over you too. Okay, that's. I'll talk to you and the camera. Anytime we do a face cast on somebody, they get written on. Just little mustaches, and hopefully you're in a good mood. Hopefully we are too.
Yeah, and we've done a few face casts in the past year, maybe 4, 5, 6 face casts for different projects, and I distinctly remember. And of course, when you do a face cast, you cover your face with alginate. You make a plaster bandages to make a kind of a mother mold, and then you pour plaster or ultracal into. You got something over there?
Adrian Saunders Pogozelski says, "What a baby face you had."
I did.
Yes. So
that was 25 years ago.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You were a baby.
It sure is. And folks, thanks for commenting too. This is going to be a conversation, interactive. That's why we do it live. But
can everybody hear?
Yeah, and ask. I think that we're talking loud enough, I think, for folks to hear. So if you guys have trouble hearing at anytime, actually just send a quick note and we'll speak up. So first face cast in 1990 something, 92 or 93, I would imagine.
Dates and Gregg are bad. Okay, so give me a decade, sure.
Yeah, but I distinctly remember sitting there, trying not to make any face, covered in alginate, covered in a plaster bandage, and I started smelling the distinct odor of Sharpie.
That was us writing on you.
And I wasn't sure what was going on. I just know that I smelled Sharpie. I was kind of getting a little head buzz. And
traditionally, you're not warned. Okay, I mean, if you're familiar with the technique, a lot of other artists do it. Okay, and many times the mother mold that's left is a trophy. If nothing too obscene anyway. Kind of depends on the people that are in the room at the time, unfortunately. But
as to the quality of the graffiti.
And then people fall asleep in there too. People find that it's a really relaxing event. They have the alginate on, and a sleeping, resting face is not the same as your waking face. Yeah. And if someone falls asleep, got to do it again.
Say hi to John Terrell.
Hey,
Mr. Terrell, tyrant.
It's good to see you guys are there.
Oh, it's great to see people like him popping up.
You know what I've done, and you may have done this as well, I just didn't know it, but we make mini faces.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, we wait for the alginate to dry, and then
alginate is mostly water. So when it dries, it really dries and shrinks, and if you get clever, you can make it really warped. Okay, you can throw it in an oven, and you can dry one side, and you get this thing-like apparition going on, and you can cast out of that too.
Yeah. I mean, here's a couple little faces, right?
Okay, sure. We had one. In fact, is that yours or mine?
No, this is Denise. We're gonna tag Denise. We got your little face for you to pick up. She knows we have it.
Dave Kometz, if I can name drop. He has a little one like this.
There's a little one like that as
Yes,
well. And
absolutely.
this was Nikki, which was
Okay.
Nikki. We still have your face cast. She knows it's
Nikki
here.
looked nicely?
No.
No,
Nikki
okay.
Reed. She was a
Okay.
model we
Sorry.
had for. No, not a problem. And then we've got some alginate. They're shrinking.
Well, and I see a Vinny.
Yeah.
That came
Did I
from...
get that?
yes.
Did I get that from your?
Yeah, that's... You should have a Boris that matches him.
I don't. I just had the Vinny.
I'll fix you up.
Okay.
Okay, I still have Boris and Bela.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then since then, there's another 30 or 40 there now.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And I never stopped collecting it. What we're talking about is death masks or life casts. And actors all over have these things done throughout their lives to have makeup done on. And this goes back to what, Frankenstein, Jack Pierce. And what we're looking at is Vincent
let's
Price.
show
I want to say that's not The Fly. You can actually, by some of the wrinkles, tell how old some of these are. I can't remember which one that is. I'm sorry.
Looks pretty old on that one.
Yeah, and he's got the little turkey thing going there. So
Yeah.
that was a little later.
Yeah.
Nope, sorry.
Well, so what we're talking about, and one of my most fond memories was not only, I mean, it was the creative stuff that was going on inside the Monster Factory, which it may have been somewhere else prior to my walking through, but it was your garage converted to an effects shop, essentially.
Yes.
And I remember
that was the
walking in.
third
Yeah.
location.
Third location.
Third location. Yeah. Monster Factory was actually okay. History. Sorry. You have Roger, and Roger, you came in a little later.
Mhm.
Okay. I was already no longer associated with Broadview at that time, I believe. Okay. I'd already kind of moved on. Monster Factory was actually before Broadview, and I was making things for haunted houses and local projects, and learned about a young man named Dave Greathouse making rubber. Okay, and people making rubber in like the 80s is nobody did that. Okay, there's just a few of us around. Myself, Arnie Goldman, who I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And that's kind of it. It was just a few of us, all right? And like you said before, secrets, everything was secret. There's 2 books out. The Dick Smith book, which was really kind of terrible, but it gave you an idea, all right? Then the Tom Savini book, which gave you direction, but there were a couple steps here and there kind of left out so you could figure it out on your own, okay? And, the guys that were really into it, they figured it out. The guys that weren't into it, well, they dropped by the wayside. That all said, by the time you got to the garage, which was my workshop at that time, that was behind my house, that was the third location. At one point, we had to rent a giant garage because we were building a fiberglass face for a haunt, my first tent haunt, okay, in Milwaukee. And it was fiberglass. So we had chopping guns and all that stuff. And, one time I had 3 pagers on my belt. And it's amazing how they'd always go off at the same time. Now, pagers were like pre-phone. So, everybody's got the phone. It's a pager, Pager. That's like in between telephones and cell phones. You had the pagers. Boy, I hated that time. But, got things done. I have no idea whatever happened to that thing. That thing was probably about 20 feet high. It took 2 trucks to ship it up there. We installed it and never saw it again.
Huh.
But, yeah.
I mean, it probably still exists somewhere, right?
As long as they took care of it, it was fiberglass. So yes, it should still exist. I'd like to think it still exists.
So describe it, because somebody,
It was a big clown head,
big clown head,
Big
and
clown
it was
face.
what was the dimensions ish?
real rough. 12 by 18.
18
Yeah,
tall, 12.
you had to bend over just a little to walk through the mouth. And then we had another girl that made the carpet, which was the tongue, which I know got ruined.
If anybody else is out there, we'd love to hear where that thing exists and if it still is out there.
I mean, of all the, we made so many bodies over the years, all these corpses, and every one of them had a name, and they all went out with death certificates. Because one of the things of the factory was, if it has a face on it, it gets a name, and usually a backstory. Okay, some kind of stupid thing just to go with it, just so people have a fond remembrance of it. And it's just like, where did all these things go?
Yeah.
You know, throughout the years, I've made easily 200 bodies, and none of them ever came back. It's amazing.
But they're out there somewhere.
They're out there somewhere.
So where did you find your, I would imagine that your creative, and let us know, I mean, did your start in the creative area, was it special effects?
I was warped by a TV show. As a kid, my dad died young, and my mom worked, so I was a latchkey kid before there was such a thing, and television was my friend. Yeah. And there was a TV show called The Twilight Zone, and there was a TV show called The Outer Limits. The Outer Limits was essentially a Monster of the Week kind of show. By today's standards, it's terrible, but, 1965, that's a phenomenal show. And that knocked me down, and it's just like, look at this. How, what, where? So that was the beginning of my warpage. Around the same time, I found this magazine called Creepy, which was a comic book by Warren Publications. You had Creepy, Eerie, and of course Famous Monsters of Filmland. Buying one led to the other, so now I'm getting Famous Monsters of Filmland. There are contests in the back of that, and also in the back of that was the Dick Smith makeup book. And I saved up my, I think, $1.98 and got that book, and when it got to me, I thought it was the greatest thing on earth until I opened it, and it was cool, for a kid like that age, but it was really not what I was looking for. But it did teach me how to use gelatin. And I made my first monster, me, at the kitchen table with gelatin. And it was a mess, but I was thrilled. I was hooked. Okay, and later on, some of the Dick Smith rumors would pop up. And at that time, Berman Rubber, I think, was the only place you could get foam rubber to do appliance-type makeups. So Berman Rubber became my friend. And between gelatin and foam rubber, the monsters started happening.
Yeah.
Because I was doing that, I was doing music at the same time. So if I wasn't doing one, I was doing the other. And
music performer?
Learning.
Learning.
Because in the that's how some of the people I met in that industry came into play. Because if I wasn't doing one, trying to make money, I was in the other, trying to make money. One way or another, I was going to be a star. Got that? A star. and yeah, here I am in your basement. So,
a star.
Well, I'm glad you think so. And I said this before, I appreciate you thinking of me. And the mentor thing, if I can talk about that just for a second. Way back when I was coming up, everything was a secret, and you experimented on yourself and your friends, and you pulled everybody else's hair out with plaster, and that was a good day. Okay, a lot of yucks, and there was a monster, and hopefully nobody was permanently injured. When folks like you came along, and the other folks that I mentioned, it's just like, it's not a secret. If you're really into this, you deserve to know how, so you can, instead of sit in the basement and experiment, you're one step further. So get that talent together, get that procedure together. I never thought of it as mentoring. It's just like, I have a friend here that needs help. I'm going to help him. That's what it's always been about. It's like showing someone else how to play a song. There's no difference. Is there talent involved? Well, that's debatable. Okay. A lot of people say, Greg, it's so easy for you. And it's like, no, it's not. Okay, it's difficult. It's very difficult for me to walk away from a project. But then that's a typical artist issue, is when do you say stop? It's very, very easy to overwork something and then it's ruined. Or not.
Yeah.
It's all in the eye of the beholder.
Adrian would like to know, what was the first monster you made?
Monster as in makeup? It would have been a gelatin self-appliance of me in a mirror, and I think I was 8.
I was about 8 when it was around Halloween, and I grabbed my Crayola crayons, and I took them up, put them on the stove, and there was cotton, and I just kind of melted the wax, and I kind of brought it up, waited for it to be cool enough to place in my face, and it was...
Yeah.
It worked.
Well, see,
I put a toboggan hat on. I mean, it was
you're
crunchy.
just old enough to make those, adventurous moves.
Yeah.
Because, as a kid, especially at that age, you have the nothing's going to happen to me anyway. You don't lose that until you're in your 20s when you actually, start losing things like fingers, which I still have all mine, which is really interesting to say, because boy, I was really at one point. Every kid goes through their let's blow things up phase, in the toys. We were talking about toys earlier. The toys I blew up as a kid, moron. Aurora figures that were 98 cents at the time, which are $100 a piece now. Blew them up. Yep, blew it up real good.
Say hi to Jeff Glatzer.
Hey, Mr. Glatzer.
And also Drew Badger, Alex Johnson, and Jerry Schmidt,
are all on watching live. Thank you guys for watching. Always share it.
Saw Mr. Schmidt last week. That was very impressive work. It's neat stuff.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, he is a when I think of that Rush song, "Working Man," which was kind of their step out. That's Jerry, because he just seems to be. He's always producing. And you walk down there. Yeah. You walk down there and you're like, there's 30 new pieces in his studio. Because
I wish I could produce like that. It's too much life is in the way. I produce what I can produce. I'm still making things here and there. It's, the output is just so slow anymore. But it is what it is.
So back to the Monster Factory.
Sure.
I remember walking through the door, and it was probably the same Sharpie that was drawn across the plaster on that mother mold on my face cast. But we signed the door on the way in.
Yes. Yeah.
And what I would say is I had trouble finding room because there were so many signatures and pictures and drawing, stuff like that.
A lot of people had been through there. Well, see, the factory originally was my shop. Yeah. Okay. Then it opened up into a place where 3 other artists worked with me, and that was AC, the Artist Coalition, which you probably don't know anything about.
Nope,
right?
not a thing.
And that worked for a while. And we had guys, the way that worked was the idea was, we'll say it that way. So let's get a bunch of artists together that do different things. And as the artists go out into the world and find jobs, if you find a job you can't do, you recommend the AC because it's the Artist Coalition, get it? Mm-hmm. And it did work, but it essentially made a star out of a couple people, and the rest of us kind of got left behind because the jobs were their specialty, yeah. And it's just like, so after that kind of dumped, it was just like, all right. So I ended up moving again, downsizing, and built my shop in the garage, got involved with a local haunted house, and offered them, if you want to come over and learn techniques, pay my electric bill. And that's what that was, that symbiosis, if you will, is. And they paid my electric bill, and everybody that was in that particular haunted house was allowed to come over and learn whatever they wanted. Yeah. Okay. And if we didn't have the stuff there, I'd go back to the haunted house and say, hey, I have some people interested in this. Let's get the materials and let's teach. The only way to get this stuff done is spread the word, spread the knowledge. I know that I was behind one of the first major headcasts at the haunted house. That was with Arthur. Arthur was Makeup Man at that time, because if I say Lord, no one's going to know what I'm talking about. Yep. And I want to say we did 35 that day, which is pretty cool. Okay, and the trick there is okay, everybody pairs up. You're going to make a life cast of him. Then when you're done, he of you. Everybody learns. Okay, when we were done, 35 people knew how to do a face cast. They had one under their belt and hopefully a working model of their face to work with. And I believe that there was only one failure. Okay, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember that giant casting session may have worked against me initially, because I wasn't part of that. I remember coming in and saying, can you make me a face cast?
Yeah, you missed that. That's right. You came in after that. Yeah.
I will. Yeah. And I felt as though you were vetting whether you had somebody who was serious about it. Right? I mean, because you did 35 face casts, and how many people used it?
Well, I've done a couple hundred face casts now, okay? Right. So that's no big deal. No, the thing there is at a certain point is just, when I was running the factory, factory was a business. And as a business, you have to make certain decisions. Some of them are popular and some of them aren't. Okay? And if there had been anything negative, I would have politely said no.
Right.
Okay? Because, again, that's part of the business aspect of it. You got to know when to pull the plug on something. And there were enough of those projects, too. But I know yours got done.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say we did...
It was within, like, I would say 1 to 2 months of hanging down there.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. I think part of the wait was we didn't have the plaster bandages. Because at one time, plaster bandages were hard to come by. You had to go to a supply house, a medical supply house, to get them. And in certain situations, medical supply houses wouldn't sell them to you either. You had to have some kind of metal. How's that? If you don't have the metal, you don't get the goods. Alginate was easy. Yeah, is those stupid bandages.
That was a hard one to find.
Yeah.
So I had a Brad Neal.
Hey, Brad.
Mr. Neal, great. I mean, later on, it dawned on us, well, gee, you don't need plaster bandages. Make your own. And it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Live and learn. Yeah.
Yep.
So you said how many face casts have you done probably over the years?
A couple hundred by now.
Couple hundred?
Yeah.
Any memorable folks, any folks that might be watching, any interesting stories?
Well, there's always the one where it locks. Okay, now if you're doing everything right, the mold in theory comes apart in 2 pieces. If you're not paying attention, you can accidentally lock the mold, and of course that's an experience.
You're talking about the head cast, right?
Yes. Well, yeah. Your alginate is a jello-y material, okay? Then you need a hard shell on top of that, and it's usually 2 pieces, the front and the back. I've locked, a good dozen or so, and that's where the 2 pieces connect, okay? And you have to come in there with usually a hammer and chisel, and I can only imagine what that sounds like inside, because it'd be like hitting a coconut in your ear. But usually they come off. Okay, so there's those. I've been in situations where other folks really got creative with the magic marker, and it's just like, you can't do that. Maintain a little depressionality, that kind of stuff. More embarrassing. Okay, how's that? Experimenting on myself when I'm doing like an arm cast of myself, and I didn't realize you have to either take the hair off your arms or grease it. So I was like, how am I going to get out of my cast? So there's, that kind of stuff. Other than that, no, not really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about kind of moving through the years? And so what year would you say, I'm not talking about your first experience at 8 years old, but like when was the Monster Factory? When did you, would
the
you say
original
that?
Monster Factory opened in this is the 80s. See, again, dates are I'm so bad on dates. I want to say the Superman show was 85.
That would have been my guess, mid-80s.
Okay. And it was already up and running at that time. So this probably was 83, 82, 83. Now, late 70s, because, I went through college and all that. And I used makeup in some of my courses. Okay, now, they weren't makeup courses. It's like I had a 3D class at Tri-C, and I used makeup for that. Okay, and they allowed it. So that would have been 78, 77. It's on in there. I want to say the first thing I did on a professional level was the ad for the Cleveland Library, which was... I got to remember the phrase at the time. Something about opening your mind using knowledge, okay? And the scene is a 30-second PBS kind of ad. And it's a character running through the library, but every time he goes behind a post, he becomes a different character. Okay, and I did that, and I made a rubber 38 special that he throws. Okay, so that's probably my very, very first endeavor, is I made a rubber 38 special to be thrown at somebody.
So you took a gun, you made it,
you make a... 38 special, cast in at that time, plaster, okay, and did 2-part foam on that one, and it was all rubbery, and I used a friend's oven, because at that time I didn't have an oven of my own, we'll say it that way. And at that time I also made a couple pickaxes, like rock hammers. You may remember the rock hammer, because Jeff Glatzer had it for a long time.
Yeah, I do remember that rock hammer.
Handle with the, and it's just like you couldn't tell.
Yeah. Jeff, do you still have that rock hammer? You have to answer. That would be...
Because that was a leftover from that. Because at that time, they wanted me to make 3 things, because they didn't know what they were going to use. Okay, I think the original idea was there was going to be a series of ads in the funding got pulled, which is, very typical. So.
Yeah. So, makeup, face cast, props, big and small. So, any set work?
Throughout the years, well, haunted houses, there's the stuff at Wonder World. Wonder World was Mike Randolph, and Wonder World was his pet project. And I know that he did a couple of ads. One ended up on MMS, I know that, and we built spaceship sets. And I weared the spaceship set and a bunch of stuff like that. Throughout the years, I've designed, what was that? There's a bunch. Set works for movies? No, nothing like that. I just, I'm in Cleveland. There's just nothing like that in Cleveland. Most of the set work I've ever done have been for haunted houses, and they're all gone.
Well, and I would say set work in haunted houses is a whole different.
Oh yeah.
Because you're walking through them. Yep. You're immersing yourself. Yep. It's being touched.
In the film world, if you don't see it, it's not made.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a rock here. Realistically, the other half of that rock doesn't exist. It's just an empty shell. Okay, haunted house, that rock is pretty much got to be seen from all the sides. So you make the whole thing. Lighting is different. Again, many times especially science fiction sets, they're 6 foot high, and everything is shot down low, stays in that set. Nothing up above. That's where the lights are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What about what are you foreseeing some creative projects in your present and
right now
future?
When we moved out to the east side, the idea was to rebuild the factory in this beautiful barn. Roger's been out there once to help, and I appreciate that, sir. And unfortunately, the wife has Parkinson, and that really, really changes the way I have to view things. So it's small stuff. You guys will be seeing some of my dementia, because I meant to bring an item and, left it behind. But you can talk about that later.
Yeah, right? Well, okay. Actually, let's talk about that now. I'm going to come right back.
And that's just a goofy thing that I make, and I'm still making heads. I go out looking for domes, glass domes, like you see on these anniversary clocks. I throw the clock away, and then I use that dome and make Harry Potter elves and little ugly things like that, and that never stopped. We're making corpses. We're just grinding corpses out for a while there. And I kind of stopped doing that because they're a shipping nightmare. Okay. If it's local, hey, you can drop it off. But, shipping a full-size 6-foot corpse is not the easiest thing. And it's expensive. Okay. And, it can almost double the price of a body to ship something a distance. That said, I just bought a wedding dress. So, a bloody bride is on the way, and so it's not over in any way, shape, or form. As long as my hands work, okay, there'll be something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There'll be something, and it'll be a little odd. Okay.
Well, talk about a little bit odd. Greg is and this is not a requirement, but we've had some folks that have donated things for this Tuesday at 7. Greg is donating one of his pieces, and we're going to do the same as we do the other weeks. We're going to, anybody who shares, we're just going to look back at a couple weeks from now, and we'll pull it from a hat, and we're going to send it. I think the only probably issue with that is we've got some folks that are watching from other countries.
I don't think it'll be a problem. Shipping live plants, okay, there's a hint, okay, can be a problem, right? That said, We'll do what we can.
We can do what we can.
We'll do what we can.
So even for those folks, we have some watchers in Italy, in Singapore, some of the other Asian countries that tune in as well. So if you share, we're gonna put your name.
As far as I know, you can ship to all those. You know, put it this way: if you're on eBay, you should be able to ship.
Gotcha.
If eBay says no, then sorry, you're not on the list.
And so keep an eye out because we're gonna put a picture out there for the item that'll be sent. It's demented. It's demented.
Everything I do has got a demented side to it. Otherwise, I don't do it.
And it's artwork. It's one of a kind. So there will be.
It's one of a kind. Yeah.
So keep an eye on that for everybody. Everybody who shares. But I wanted to introduce Gregg to Carrie. Carrie, come on in here.
Hello.
Nice
How are you? You too.
Good, how are you?
Let me tell you a little bit about Carrie because she hasn't actually. You sit down here for a second.
Sure.
Sit down here for a second.
Yeah.
But Carrie was in here just a few days ago.
Okay.
And so we've got her face cast.
Was I watching that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have her face cast.
Yeah.
Very good.
And
what are you gonna do with it?
So I was thinking about maybe creating something for a competition I'm in, but I don't know if I'll be able to get it out in time.
Okay.
So I'm thinking Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, dry time is always dry/hardening time. And here I'm going to expound on something here. Face Off, which was such a great show. So many talented people on there. So many of my friends went on there. Okay. But as positive as Face Off was, there was a couple negative things to it. And the first one was these guys were whipping this stuff out in a day, when in reality it took weeks.
I believe it.
There were times the artist would come back in the night after sculpting and molding something, and he'd be looking at their foam piece like they'd never seen it before. It's because they hadn't. Someone else came in and did it for him overnight. Okay, and I'm not blowing whistles on anybody because anybody that really knows what's going on is like, wait a minute. But that said, so dry time is very important.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to get my hands more on that. I do a lot more body painting, but Roger and Matt,
Airbrush?
Hand painting mostly. I need to get into my airbrush, but they're helping me a lot to get into the special effects and.
Oh, great people. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was quite ironic that Carrie grew up with our kids. Can you see me? Am I on the? Carrie grew up with our kids, and so that's how we knew her. But even back in high school, she was just painting, body painting, face painting. And the kids would come home and go, I think I'm going to have my face painted by Carrie. Yeah. And I was like, who is this Carrie? She just kept doing it. And
she was in that movie. Different Carrie.
Different Carrie.
But during that time, I mean, she's continued, and this is what she's doing, full time. We did a project. She's part of the special effects, this little special effects team we put together called Gen XYZ.
Very cool.
And as she is moving, and we're gonna go ahead and brag on Carrie a little bit because she is right now in a top 5 competition.
Yeah, national.
So tell us just 30 seconds about that.
Yeah, so NYX Professional Makeup, they're a cosmetic company, and every year they hold, it's called the Face Awards, and so we are competing to become Artist of the Year. I am one step away from that title. I will compete with the other global winners and $50,000, which is not bad too. So I'm just trying to get some support.
See, they never had stuff like that when we were. It's like, no, this is good. This is great because it does bring up talent. And if there's only one thing I can tell you is be safe. If you ever get in a situation where you're really uncomfortable, there's a reason you feel that way. Okay, and take a back step and figure it out again.
Yeah, the sage advice. I mean, I think that's something that I repeat probably because I heard it from you for so many years, and that is there's safety rules are number one, and if you're creative, and safe. You could do things that have never been done before,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so the whole the safety, make sure you're not gluing yourself, not super gluing things in,
Which I've done.
not cast it over your arms or
I heard that
latex.
one.
Tattooing people with spray guns,
Yeah.
which has happened. You know,
Ooh.
that's where the pressure is too high. And
Ouch.
it actually, pierces the skin. So now they have this wonderful lifetime adventure, And so you don't want that.
So wrap us up a little bit, Greg, in terms of, so you've been doing makeup for,
I really don't do makeup anymore. I
been
just
doing
don't.
special effects.
More special
and
effects
props and
and
stuff like that.
Yeah.
For 40, 50, 40,
Yeah, long time.
Long time.
Long time.
I've been doing it for less than that. Carrie's been doing it for years and years and years. I mean, in terms of painting and stuff like that. Now she's getting into other
Yeah,
effects.
but this is
and
really
casting.
cool because we have technically 3 generations here.
I know, it's
Mhm.
awesome.
Okay, and that's so awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm very grateful to have you guys around here because, man, I don't know if I'd be learning this if not. So,
What do you suggest for folks to say? So I mean that was great advice, which is I remember from back in the early '90s, which is
Stay safe.
stay safe. But I mean,
Stay safe.
in terms of advice for creatives and
Newer people coming up, go to local haunted houses. Okay, there is a lot of talent at the haunted houses currently, and you have certain places that don't use rubber masks, and they're all about the makeup. And you can get hired there, you can volunteer there, and you can learn using somebody else's materials. Materials are very expensive. Okay, in my past, materials prevented me from doing certain things. And the mother of invention was, well, how can I go ahead and do this without spending $200 that I don't have? Okay. Materials are still expensive. I mean, right now you've got silicone, and silicone is the most beautiful material. I mean, it's so lifelike. It's incredible. It is also outrageously expensive. Okay. So you blow one and, it hurts. Okay. It hurts. So if you can, go to a haunted house. Yeah, go to a haunted house. I mean, there's always productions going on now. Unfortunately, we're in Cleveland, and of course, Cleveland is up and coming on this kind of stuff. However, it's not Hollywood, and it never will be. So if you do get involved in a production like that, lucky you. You're not going to get paid for it, okay? It just isn't in the budget in Cleveland, all right? If you're hired as an extra, you're very lucky, okay? Realistically, you have to leave the area to really, pick on Dave Greathouse again. He had to leave Ohio to get the notoriety he needed to come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course you have these one-hitters that are like Tom Savini. Okay. Tom Savini is a makeup artist out of Pittsburgh, and he has his own school and very talented, great guy, fun guy. Okay. But he's one of the rare ones. He didn't go to Hollywood. I'm staying here. And he made it. Okay. But your Savinis are rare. Okay. I can't really think of too many others, to be honest. You have history. Can you think of any others?
Yeah, I mean, so
everybody ends up in New York or California.
Yeah, and then sometimes returns back, but they've had to have learned, networked, figured out, become a who's who, and then
exactly. You have to kind of have a reputation to go home.
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, then you can jet set to the places. But again, you got to have that base to work from, and without that base, you're not going.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's great advice. Get out there and
it's all hands on. I mean, you got to learn. You don't have to be able to draw per se. A lot of people say, I got to be able to draw. It's like, well, it helps to be able to draw because now you're able to convey some of your feelings or what you're trying to make in your 2D. Okay, but as long as you can sculpt, as long as you can get your hands on it, once you understand shading, once you understand 3D values, it all drops in place. Okay, the art is in the fingers and doing it. Okay, the art is the procedure. You get the procedure down, hopefully the creativity comes with it. I mean, you do have to have that spark. Some people claw for that spark of creativity, and I feel bad for those folks. Then you got mental people like me that is just like, okay, I don't have time to write it all down. Okay, and that in itself is strange and daunting in the sense that, you know, there's been times I'll sleep with a notebook and I wake up and I have to write things down, okay, because I know in half an hour it's gone, okay, and some of my best stuff has come up in a dream, okay, so I don't know if that's me or something else I've experienced, and my mind is kind of like just, you know, rerunning it and that kind of stuff, but we'll never know.
Well, I mean, I would say that one of the things that these creative interviews have kind of revealed is it doesn't make a difference what field in the creative areas. I mean, whether you're a musician or a sculptor or an effects guy, a prop maker, a body painter, kind of that creative stuff happens similarly, I think, across all of us. I mean, I do wake up, right? And I've got it. Sometimes the subconscious stuff works, and you're just like, I'm, you know, riding. I'm like, well, I've got to write that down as soon as I can pull.
In the car, I'll do my voice to text if I have something, and I'll just be blurbing off about whatever it is, so I remember what I was thinking of later.
Well, for a little while, I carried a voice recorder in my pocket.
Yes.
You might remember those days.
That, yeah.
Okay. And a lot of times it was pinned right here.
Yeah.
So that way, if my hands were in something, all I had to do was go, hey, guess what? You know, and I could talk to myself. Well, I went through like 3 of those. I remember dropping one in plaster once. You might have been there for that one. I don't know.
Maybe.
If you weren't, I know Jeff was. One of the Jeffs was.
Better plaster than the toilet.
Same thing.
Yeah. As we're kind of wrapping up, if there's any last minute questions, did Jeff respond on his?
Jeff said he never had the rock hammer.
Okay, well.
So somebody had it.
Somebody has it.
And I think it was Adrian again asked, going back. Oh yeah, Adrian asked, do you like to use wet or oil clay when working on
I use
casts?
both, and then sometimes I'll use here I'm gonna plug Arnie. I use Monster Makers. You know, I use that, which is an oil type. Okay, and they all come in different. It kind of depends on what I'm doing and how long I know it's going to take me to do it. If it's going to be a short work, I'll use water clay. Okay, and you just keep it wet. Okay, I'll use wet clay. I've used oil clay. I've used poly clay. Okay, it depends on what I'm making, which is not really an answer. Okay, and I'm sorry. Okay,
I would imagine a lot of it is trial and error.
Yeah, if I'm doing makeup oriented stuff, I tend to use oil clay. Okay, if I'm doing sculpture that I'm going to be casting for prop making, I tend to use water clay. Okay, and then if I'm doing just a one shot, I'll use polyclay because I'm just doing the sculpt. I'll just bake it. Polyclay is this wonderful plastic clay that you can bake, and as long as you can bake it correctly, all right, it doesn't crack, it doesn't fall apart, and you know, there it is. It's done. Okay, you don't have to cast it. Sculpey.
Yeah,
I think
Carrie started out with Sculpey when she was in junior high.
And then there's Better.
And we'd get our little teddy bears and Sculpey, and she'd
a lot
make
of
them
your
for us.
one-of-a-kind dolls tend to be Sculpey. And Fima, I think, is another one.
Yes.
Kernet is another one. I know there's an Italian one that's made just for like porcelain dolls. Oh, it's gorgeous stuff, and it's so soft. It's really nice. It's almost too soft. And sculptors know what I'm saying there. Okay.
Yeah.
If the material is too soft, it doesn't tend to hold detail properly. It's got to have a little oomph to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't get a sharp detail.
Yeah.
So.
I would imagine we're probably wrapped up on questions for right now.
Say hi to Uncle Jerry.
Hey, Jerry, how are you? Good to see you. So, as we're kind of wrapping up, in the next handful of days, maybe the next week, we'll give away the stuff from Jerry Schmidt. We actually have it back here. We picked these CDs from Neo Zaza. We'll be getting those out as well. Greg has his giveaway, which is phenomenal. You'll see a picture of it, and anybody who shares this video will be put to a drawing. I would say we probably have anywhere between, in the last few weeks, 8 to 15, 20 people sharing. So your chances are pretty good by sharing this out. But Greg, I want to say thank you because, hey, 1991, 92, there was, as I said before, there was no YouTube, and I had books, and I had a couple folks that lent their knowledge and kind of helped me along the way, and you're certainly one of those.
Well,
And-
YouTube has really expanded things. I mean, there's so many wonderful tutorials on there. Again, if you feel something doesn't seem right, think about it twice, okay? Because I have seen a couple on there that are like, and usually they get pulled down, okay? If there's a bad technique involved, usually someone kind of blows the whistle and it gets taken down. But there's so much knowledge out there. It's different time.
Yeah. So, and maybe the Tuesday at 7 and the folks that push us out and are involved in special effects, that knowledge that seed was planted at some point, and it kind of moves down through several generations. So thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Carrie, good luck on your New York
makeup. Yeah.
No, what is it? How
It'll
is
be
it?
LA.
And what is it again? NYX.
NYX NYX professional makeup, and it's the Face Awards competition.
So you guys probably have seen
Hi, John Walsh.
John Walsh.
Mr. Walsh.
You probably have seen Carrie's Facebook profile. She's in my friends list, and she goes by Makeup Madhouse is kind of your
brand name.
Your brand
That's
name.
one might call.
You'll see her around because she's out there. Check her out on Instagram. I know that there's
still the Monster Factory. There's still Lunacy's. Where we put things on eBay and Etsy, and you'll see more.
You'll see more.
You'll see more.
Well, thank you all for spending your Tuesday night with us again. You'll hear an announcement or something just mentioned about our artist next week, and you'll hear that in the next few days, probably at the same time as we give away Jerry Schmidt's things. And again, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Carrie. Guys, thanks for watching.